Your toxic stepdaughter will steal your inheritance if you don't protect yourself. She could be plotting to steal your inheritance right now. In this video, I'll show you exactly what we do to protect what's rightfully yours from a toxic stepdaughter. I'm attorney Jesus Orlando Valentino. Call me J.O., founder of Valentino Law PLLC, where we specialize in wills, trusts, and estates. Now, I know I might look young for an attorney, but I've handled hundreds of these cases, and the truth is, I only look this young because I wear sunscreen religiously and I'm married to an absolute angel. Today, I'm sharing the exact strategies we use to help our clients safeguard their inheritances from toxic stepdaughters before it's too late. Maybe you have a perfectly wonderful relationship with your stepdaughter. Stay tuned here to learn how you can keep it that way. Is your stepdaughter toxic? Let's identify 10 red flags to look out for. If she is suddenly walking around your house pointing at things and saying, "Is this a collectible? How much is this worth?" and you catch her measuring your artwork with a tape measure, here's your red flag. If she insists on going to the doctor's office with you and then asks to speak to the doctor alone and comes out saying, "Good news, I'm in control of all your future medical decisions," here's your red flag. If your biological son says he's called you 15 times this week, but she keeps telling you nobody's called while she keeps your phone in her purse, here's your red flag. If she says your biological son must be really busy with his new boat since he's too busy to call you, but your son doesn't even own a boat, here's your red flag. If you get in the car with her thinking you're going to church and she pulls up to the bank, here's your red flag. If she tells you, "We have to sign these documents right now," but you even had your morning coffee yet, here's your red flag. If she says, "That lawyer you hired is a real quack, but my yoga instructor is a financial genius," here's your red flag. If she's got only one house but has asked you to pay for 2 emergency roof repairs, here's your red flag. If she's skipped your birthday to be at the bottom of a bottle for the past 20 years, but finally decides to move into your house to help you out, here's your red flag. If it's Thanksgiving dinner and you ask her to pass the mac and cheese and she passes you some papers and a pen, here's your red flag. If you recognize any of these red flags in your life, watch out and call my office right away at 305-634-7790. I've had someone call and ask, "Why does he always wear that Panama hat?" The truth is, after working on all these toxic stepdaughters cases for the past 9 or 10 years, I need something to hide my new gray hairs. Now, let's get down to the serious business of protecting your legacy. Here's what we'll cover in the rest of this video. The 5 specific greedy stepdaughter scenarios you need to recognize, the 8 powerful legal strategies that actually work to protect your assets. Special situations involving blended families and business succession plans, and a step-by-step action plan you can implement today. By the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge and tools you need to protect your legacy from even the most determined toxic stepdaughters. If you've seen some of these red flags in your situation, don't delay. Schedule a consultation by calling 305-634-7790. Email your concerns to jo@jovalentino.com or fill out our contact form at jo@jovalentino.com. Now, let's talk about the 5 most common tactics that toxic stepdaughters use to divert your inheritance away from the rest of your family. By recognizing these patterns early, you can protect yourself before it's too late. Scenario number 1 is what I call the emotional manipulation maneuver. Your stepdaughter plays on your emotions. It's so toxic. She's suggesting that you're being unfair by not treating her equally to your biological children. My hypothetical client, Guilted George, was continually told by his stepdaughter, sob story Sarah, that he was her real dad since her biological father abandoned her. She would cry about feeling excluded from the family whenever estate planning was mentioned. George eventually rewrote his will to include her equally to his own biological children, despite having only known her for 2 years of her adult life. When George's biological sons questioned this decision, sob story Sarah dramatically claimed like he was trying to erase her from the family. After George's death, though, she stole and sold her portion of the business to a competitor. Yuck. Number 2 is the caregiver control takeover. This happens during illness or declining health. In this one, your toxic stepdaughter positions herself as your primary caregiver, and she begins to isolate you from your biological children. Consider my hypothetical client, secluded Stanley, whose stepdaughter, nightmare nurse Nancy, convinced him that his biological sons were too busy to help him with his medical appointments. She began controlling his medication, screening his calls, and eventually moved herself into his house to provide round-the-clock care. Within 6 months, she had convinced Stanley to put her on his financial accounts for convenience, and then had him revise his power of attorney. By the time it was all said and done, this toxic stepdaughter had drained his accounts, saying that it was expenses for caregiving. In our third scenario, the relationship wedge strategy, your toxic stepdaughter systematically damages your relationship with your biological children, often by reporting or even fabricating negative comments supposedly made by them. Divided Dave was shocked when his stepdaughter, triangulating Tina, showed him text messages from his biological child criticizing him and his new marriage. his relationship with his biological child deteriorated rapidly until months later when his biological kid produced evidence that Tina had been using a fake number to send herself those texts. In scenario 4, the financial advisor infiltration, this particularly devious approach involves your toxic stepdaughter either becoming directly involved in your financial affairs or introducing you to her trusted financial advisor, who often provides advice that ultimately benefits her. Financially fooled Frank was persuaded by his stepdaughter, portfolio pilfering Paula, to work with her college friend who had extensive estate planning experience. Frank had already planned, and he had planned to leave her a reasonable inheritance, but this advisor recommended a complex financial structure that obscured what was really happening, that everything was being sent to pilfering Paula so that she could take over his accounts when he passed away. Scenario 5 is the spousal influence channel. Perhaps this is the most common scenario, and it involves your stepdaughter influencing her mother, your wife, to pressure you into an estate plan change. Pressured Paul found himself constantly caught between his wife and his biological children. His stepdaughter, mommy's mouthpiece Melissa, never directly approached Paul about these matters. Instead, she would upset her mother with stories about how Paul's children already had enough money and didn't appreciate him anyway. His wife would then approach Paul when they were alone, and often in tears, insisting that Paul had to make things equal by including her equally in his estate plan, despite the fact that Paul had already provided generously for his wife in his trust. Whether you're dealing with sob story Sarah, nurse nightmare Nancy, triangulating Tina, or portfolio pilfering Paula, or mommy's mouthpiece Melissa, the threat is real. These toxic stepdaughters are manipulating their way into your estate. Next, we'll explore the 8 most powerful legal strategies to protect your inheritance from even the most determined stepdaughters. These are the exact same techniques we use with our clients at Valentino Law PLLC. Give us a call today at 305-634-7790. And yes, the Panama hat isn't just a fashion statement. It's easier to remember the attorney with the hat than it is to remember attorney Jesus Valentino. Now, for the solutions, here are legal strategies I use with my clients to protect inheritances from being diverted to toxic stepdaughters. Strategy number 1 that we're starting off with is the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, or ILIT. The Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust allows you to set aside specific assets for your biological children while still providing generously for your current spouse. The life insurance policy pays directly into a trust upon your death, bypassing probate entirely. Take the hypothetical example of Strategic Steve. He established an ILIT, naming his 3 children as beneficiaries, and funded it with a $4 million life insurance policy. Meanwhile, he arranged for his current wife to inherit their primary residence and retirement accounts. When his stepdaughter discovered that she couldn't access the insurance proceeds after his death, she complained to the trustee, who simply looked at her and said, "These funds were never part of Steve's probate estate. They've been in his trust for his biological children for years." The key details that make this work is that the trust is irrevocable and properly funded and has clear beneficiary designations that couldn't be changed after creation. Now, strategy 2 is the Qualified Personal Residence Trust, or QPER. Now, this specialized trust allows you to transfer your home to your biological children while retaining the right to live in it for a specified period. This can be particularly valuable for preserving family properties. Consider the hypothetical case of property protecting Peter, who put his family's beloved lakefront property, and it's a cabin, into a 15-year QPER, naming his biological sons as the ultimate beneficiaries. His stepdaughter had always commented how perfect that cabin would be for her family's gatherings. After Peter's death, she pressured her mother to claim some interest to the property, only to discover it had already been legally designated to transfer to Peter's biological sons. When she complained, the estate attorney simply explained, "The cabin was removed from Peter's estate years ago. It's not subject to elective share or any family allowance claims that the surviving spouse can make." Now, our next strategy is the detailed prenuptial or postnuptial agreement. Now, a comprehensive marital agreement can clearly outline what assets are intended for your biological children versus your current spouse, and by extension, her children. This approach requires open communication and creates the clear legal protection that you'll enjoy forever. My hypothetical client, Forthright Frank, created a prenuptial agreement with his second wife that clearly enumerated family heirlooms, his business interests, and investment accounts that would pass to his biological children. The agreement provided generously for his wife through other assets and insurance policies. When his stepdaughter challenged the division after his death, the judge upheld the agreement, saying both parties entered into this contract with full disclosure and independent legal counsel. Strategy 4 is the strategic lifetime gifting. Strategic gifting during your lifetime can really reduce your taxable estate while ensuring that specific assets reach your intended heirs, your biological children. Current tax laws allows you to give up to $17,000 per year per recipient without filling out a gift tax return with your accountant. Generous Gerald implemented a decade-long gifting strategy, transferring shares of his successful business to his biological son and daughter through annual exclusion gifts. By the time of his passing, his biological children had already legally owned significant portions of the company. When his toxic stepdaughter tried to claim an interest in the business, Gerald's estate attorney simply produced the documentation of the completed gifts, saying these ownership transfers occurred years ago and are not part of the probate estate. Strategy 5 is the dynasty trust, which is perfect for multi-generational planning. For substantial estates, a dynasty trust will protect assets for multiple generations of your biological lineage while providing reasonable benefits for your current spouse during her lifetime. My hypothetical client, legacy-minded Lawrence, established a dynasty trust for his family's business, providing income for his wife during her lifetime, but ensuring the principal would ultimately pass to his biological children and grandchildren. The trust included specific language about maintaining the business within the bloodline. When his stepdaughter, who's toxic, tried to convince her mother to pressure the trustee for more distributions, the trustee was bound by the clear distribution standards set up in the trust documents, which prioritized business growth over maximum income. Strategy 6 is limited liability companies with operating agreements. Family LLCs can be powerful tools for maintaining control while gradually transferring ownership to your biological children. The operating agreement becomes a controlling legal document that can restrict transfers outside the bloodline. Structured Samuel transferred his real estate portfolio into an LLC, maintaining 51% voting control while giving economic interests to his biological children. The operating agreement specifically prohibited transfers to anyone outside his direct bloodline without unanimous consent from all members. After his passing, when his toxic stepdaughter tried to convince her mother to transfer some interests to her, the operating agreement created an insurmountable legal barrier. Strategy 7 is the no contest clause, with a bonus strategy of strategic bequests. Now, including a modest but meaningful bequest to your toxic stepdaughter could create a strong incentive if you pair it with a no contest clause, which disinherits many from challenging your estate plan. Consider Tactical Thomas, who left his toxic stepdaughter a $50,000 bequest with a clause stating that anyone who contests the will receive zip, zero, zilch, the remainder of his multi-million-dollar estate passed to his biological children. His toxic stepdaughter consulted with 3 different attorneys, all of whom advised that challenging the will would likely result in her receiving nada. Instead, to accept the $50,000. When she complained about the unfairness, her attorney advised, take the 50 grand and be grateful, you. The alternative is nothing. Toxic stepdaughters are out there. Don't let them take over your life. If you're already identifying that you'd like to implement some of these protection strategies, schedule a consultation by calling my office at 305-634-7790 or email your situation to jo@jovalentino.com. Our main line does start with a 305 area code, but remember, we handle cases all over the Sunshine State. After all, I've written inheritance guides for each of Florida's 67 counties. Now, let's dive into how to handle those particularly challenging inheritance situations. When dealing with toxic stepdaughters and inheritance planning, several special situations require additional consideration and specialized strategies. Blended families with multiple sets of children are one consideration. When both you and your current spouse have children from previous relationships, the inheritance becomes increasingly complex. In these situations, I often recommend a mutual respect trust structure. This structure creates separate but coordinated trusts that acknowledge both spouses' obligations to their respective children while providing for each other. For example, Balanced Will and his second wife created separate trusts primarily benefiting their own biological children, with provisions ensuring that neither spouse would be left vulnerable during their lifetime. The key advantage is that both spouses maintain control over the ultimate disposition of their own assets while still providing security for each other. When Balanced Bill's stepdaughter, Equitable Emma, questioned why she wasn't receiving an exactly equal share as Balanced Bill's biological children, the estate attorney simply explained, your mother's trust protects your interests that the same way that Balanced Bill's trusts protects his biological children's interest. It's a balanced approach that honors both family lines. Next is the cognitive decline and capacity concerns. A particularly challenging scenario occurs when toxic stepdaughters take advantage of declining mental capacity. To protect against this, establish a revocable trust with a professional co-trustee who can take over if capacity ever becomes an issue. Consider a formal geriatric assessment that determines your current cognitive status, and create a detailed letter of intent with our office where you explain your estate planning rationale and implement a carefully structured power of attorney with multiple safeguards. In one hypothetical case, proactive Peter became concerned about potential future cognitive decline. So he arranged for a complete neuropsychological evaluation to document his cognitive status before making significant changes to his estate plan. He then established a revocable trust with a professional trustee and made a detailed statement of intent explaining why certain assets were being designated to his biological children. When his toxic stepdaughter later claimed that he had just been confused when creating his estate plan, his attorney produced the neuropsychological report, which had been conducted just 2 weeks before the trust was signed. As the judge reviewing the case noted, this level of advanced planning and documentation demonstrates clear intent and capacity at the time these decisions were made. Business succession planning is our next topic. If you own a business, protecting it from a toxic stepdaughter's interference requires a multi-layered approach. Create a formal succession plan that clearly outlines ownership transfer. Consider a shareholders agreement or a buy-sell agreement that restricts transfers. Begin transferring operational roles to your successors during your lifetime. Use life insurance to provide liquidity for non-business heirs. Enterprise Edward owned a manufacturing company that he built over 40 years and wanted his biological son, who had worked in the business for over 20 years, to take over. He implemented a business continuation plan that included systematically transferring ownership through yearly gifts and established a clear governance structure and used life insurance to provide equal inheritance value to his biological daughter, who wasn't involved in the business. His second wife's daughter, the toxic stepdaughter, corporate Kathy, had frequently suggested that she should have a role in the company despite having no prior interest or experience until right at the end. The succession plan had clearly established that only family members who had worked in the business for at least 10 years could hold management positions. When Kathy later tried to leverage her mother's elective share rights to gain control to the company's shares, the shareholders' agreement created an insurmountable barrier by requiring all existing shareholders to approve of any transfer of shares outside of the current ownership group. Our next focus is real estate and second homes. Vacation properties and second homes often become flashpoints in inheritance disputes with toxic stepdaughters. Consider these strategies. Use a qualified personal residence trust or CUPR to transfer the property while retaining usage rights. Create an LLC to own the property with a detailed operating agreement. Consider a ladybird deed. Consider also a life estate for your spouse with a remainder interest to your biological children. Lake House Larry placed his beloved family vacation home in an LLC with a very detailed operating agreement that granted his wife usage rights during her lifetime, but specified that ownership would pass exclusively to his biological children upon his death. The agreement included specific provisions regarding maintenance responsibilities and ownership. When his stepdaughter, Vacation Valerie, tried to claim an ownership interest and extended usage rights, the LLC operating agreement provided clear and legally binding terms that protected Larry's intentions for his biological family. The cases of Balanced Bill, Proactive Peter, Enterprise Edward, and Lake House Larry show that proper planning can protect you from even the most determined toxic stepdaughters. Now that we've covered these special situations, I'm going to next share a comprehensive action plan that walks you through exactly how to implement these protections step by step. You'll learn the proper timing, key considerations to have, and how to overcome resistance from both your spouse and toxic stepdaughter. And remember, if you're dealing with a complex blended family situation or other time-sensitive issue, don't delay in getting professional help. Call us immediately at 305-634-7790. Email your relevant documents to jo@jovalentino.com or visit jovalentino.com to request an urgent consultation. Now, let's discuss how to put all these strategies into action. Now that you understand the risks and strategies, let's talk about how to actually implement these protections. Here's a comprehensive 5-step action plan. Step 1 is to request our asset inventory guide or our ebook. Call or send us an email or check out our website and request the asset inventory guide or our ebook. Just fill out the guide and email it over to me and you'll get the ball rolling. This initial step will help you begin to identify your assets in an organized way and help you clarify your intentions for each of them. Step 2 is to engage a professional lawyer independently. Consult with an attorney who will represent your interests, not the joint interests of you and your spouse. It's a big difference. This initial consultation can remain private, just so that you can be sure that you're receiving unbiased advice. During our phone call, be completely transparent about the issues that have come up with your toxic stepdaughter or other family. As one hypothetical client, Candid Carl, told me during our first meeting, I want to provide for my wife, but I'm concerned my toxic stepdaughter will ultimately end up taking control and taking the money I intend to leave to my biological children. This clarity that he gave me allows me to recommend the most appropriate protection strategy. Step 3 is to implement core legal protections. Based on your specific situation, we'll implement appropriate protection strategies as we've discussed. Remember, the most effective protection is a multi-layer approach for different types of assets and potential challenges. Critical documents may include a comprehensive will, one or more trusts tailored to your specific circumstances, updated beneficiary designations, on all your financial accounts, powers of attorney with appropriate safeguards, healthcare directives, property ownership adjustments where we retitle the assets as needed to get you where you need to go. Step 4 is to conduct structured family discussions. Once your core protections are in place, consider having appropriate family discussions. These should be carefully structured to explain your decisions without inviting negotiation. Effective approaches include one-on-one conversations with your spouse before including any other family members. A clear explanation of your values and intentions rather than focusing on specific asset values, and placing an emphasis on fairness rather than equality. These are not the same concept. And I'm available to be in your corner for these talks, especially if there's someone who's a little bit explosive and doesn't want to listen to anything you have to say. I'll tell them, okay? Diplomatic David contacted everyone separately. First, his wife, just to make sure she felt secure, then his own biological children to explain what they'd inherit, and finally, his stepkids to let them know what they'd get. By planning these conversations carefully, he kept everyone calm and made sure they all understood his plans. Step 5 is to keep your plan up to date. Take another look at your estate plan every 3 years or whenever big things happen. This could be in your life, like getting married, divorced, or when somebody is born or passes away, or when your assets change a lot, like selling a business or buying another vacation home, or when tax laws change. And to be honest, this happens all the time. If you move to a different state, let me know. If family relationships change, I really want to know about this. For example, if tensions are rising or new conflicts develop, as I tell all my clients, a pinch of proper planning prevents a pound of probate problems. Remember the lessons from vulnerable Victor, guilted George, secluded Stanley, and divided Dave. Don't be a financially fooled Frank or pressured Paul. Having a toxic stepdaughter experience teaches that proper planning is essential to protect your legacy. You're now ready to take action. The strategies I've shared today are just the beginning. To get started, call us for customized, tailored advice for your specific family situation. Reach out to us at Valentino Law PLLC by giving us a call at 305-634-7790. Email us at jo@jovalentino.com or visit jovalentino.com to schedule a consultation. This is attorney J.O. Valentino helping you secure what's rightfully yours. And remember, if you hire a Panama hat-wearing attorney, with me in your corner, those daughters who are toxic and evil won't know what hit them. Now, watch this next video to see who really inherits a stepmom or stepkids.